They were called the fairy forts. And you never cut even a bush off them. Because it's most unlucky. And there is fairy forts there all over the country, and they're left there. They were never touched. Never. That's true, man.
Yes.
That's true, yeah.
I heard them telling about the fairy fort, and he was warned. They said, you leave that in the field, don't touch it. That's not doing you any harm. Because they said they maintained that they came at night, they had their gathering in the, and he said, what is it doing there? And he cut it anyway. So if he did, he paid for it. He was minus. He's like, whether that's lies or truth now, don't ask me.
Only that was very unlucky to build houses someplace between the forts, especially if there were passageways there. There were passageways there all with an olden days. People had paths there. But I suppose to be very unlucky, and you couldn't live in the house. But I think that was sort of true too.
Yes. A fort on my... And I have been back there now. I haven't been back there for, I suppose, over 50 years. And I have been back there about 2 years ago. And the fort is still there. And all the rest of the ditches are all shifted, all in one. And the fort is still there.
That they say it was very unlucky to build between the two forts, and that the house would be sort of haunted, and they'd have trouble there, that I suppose whatever used to pass through, you'd be blocking their passage, you know.
I remember a man just near our house, we used to call it the Round the O.
Yeah.
There was a fairy fort, and I was coming home that way when I took up to that farmhouse for the milk, and on my way home the man of that house happened to be going to the pub for a drink, and he walked me down at me to my own house, and this was daylight, you see, to be early on a summer's evening, and I said, I go through the Round the O, there's a gap at one side and you get out a gap on the other side. Well, he said, I do it in the daytime, he said, but I couldn't do that at night, because I was coming home from the pub one night, but of course he happened to be coming home from the pub. And he said, I got in one gap and I couldn't get out the other one, I couldn't find it, and I walked around all night, he said, and I couldn't get out.
I heard that story being telling about in the field, and the following morning there was the gap and they couldn't find the opening.
But of course,
and in the house even, or the door. Want to go to the toilet and couldn't find the door.
And I told that to anybody, they said, well, sure, if he was sober, he'd have been able to get out all right, but there you are.
No way should you interfere with the fairy fold. Right. You know, sometimes there are trees growing around it, and a person should not cut those trees. And I know of several people who have cut the trees and they had bad luck, they lost a limb or whatever as a result. So there's no way that I would have anything to do with a fairy fort.
No, you're not supposed
the
to
one thing,
touch them actually.
No.
A farmer up here, and they went at its fort. The pile of stones, like. No one ever touched it, like. And they cleaned it all out, and for the fort. So it was like where there was somebody buried or something. We was gone the next day by, they were one of the men's bed. He had the shingles. Farmer had the shingles, and the brother had bad dose the flu. They were a long time in bed after that, tell you. They left it there after that. They never touched it after that again. It's a bad thing to go on with them things. It isn't safe now. Fort shouldn't be left alone.
You know, I've heard of people years ago that a man went into a fort and he took sticks out of it. He started cutting down sticks and took them out. And next morning when he got up, one of his cows was dead.
Strange.
You know? So, you know, the likes of those things should be left alone.
But that's the same thing about the tree on its own as well, isn't it?
The lone tree.
The lone tree, you're not meant to cut it.
No.
And believe it or not, there was one out here in Hollymount. For years and years, since I was a small girl, you know, everyone had been asked to cut this tree and nobody touched it. But this fella anyways went in, it's only a couple of years ago.
So,
He said he'd cut it. I think it was about 2-3 months after he was dead. Believe it or not. He was the only one that ever cut the tree. But he didn't live to tell the tale of it.
I know of people that went to clear a fort up in Kilmaine, and one fella dropped dead, another fella went in to get him out and to do something else, and he dropped dead, and that is the truth. It's very, very unlucky to go near a fort. A lot of people won't. Or even a tree out in the middle of the thing that there's nothing around. They call it a fairy bush or fairy tree. They won't go near that either. Lots of people don't.
Now, there was another thing about a hawthorn bush.
That's right.
That you would never cut down a hawthorn bush if it was on its own.
And
My grandfather, in the three-corner field, this is a true story now, he went up to it was down from the fort, but this bush was on its own and he wanted to cut it down. And this little old woman came out from under the bush and she said, leave that there. So he didn't heed her anyway, and he cut down the bush. And in a week's time, a huge big thistle grew up where the bush was cut.
yeah.
And he went to dig it up, and the thistle hit him in the eye and blinded him.
God.
That's true.
Yeah.
I listened to my father. I used to hear him tell this story. There was a man next village to us, and he was. They were building a house or doing something. Anyhow, there was a quarrying up this big stone out of somewhere, and under he got a crock of gold.
Yeah.
Now he took the gold, and anyhow, his son got sick then. And he was very sick and he was going to die. And the son said to the father, put that gold back and I'll be all right. But he didn't, and the son died. I often wonder what became of the crock of gold after that. I never heard any more about it.
Well, Matt Nail now, Tom Roach, and were two great men with dogs after rabbits, years ago, the lamp.
Yeah,
and they went into a row up here. That's where Rahin got his name, the Ra. And they went in up down to McMurphy's Ra. And all the old fellas said, what will you do now? Don't go into the Ra.
Yeah.
They are two real good dogs. And they'll tell you that, they can tell you that still now. And they went into the Ra. And the Ra was full of rabbits.
Yes.
The dogs wouldn't follow the rabbits in the Ra.
Yeah.
And the next thing, the two dogs started to shake and shiver. And they ran on the road. And the two dogs died about a week after.
Aye?
Yeah. And Matt will tell you that to this day now. So they wouldn't go near her anymore.
If there's a rat in a field or something like that, they don't like touching it. Because, like,
People
there was a
would
case
tell
there, Jim now, my husband, I know, there was some case and something happened. Some fella, he mowed down the rat and he's levelled off the field or something. And something, I think the poor man got cancer or something a short time after that. Like, but then, like
People don't touch them.
they don't, I suppose. You know,
they're left there.
yeah, I suppose you don't think of these things till something happen if you do the thing. But then people are a bit afraid of getting rid of a rat because they say it's unlucky or something. They're there for some purpose or something.
He was after cleaning up. He cleaned up all this out. It was supposed to be a rye, you know, full of those little old small shrubs, you know. And he was supposed to have taken him out of it, you know, took him up out of it. And a couple of days after he got this disease in his arm and he had to have it off. And I reckon it was from that, you know, from the touching them, you know, that those little men lived in it, you know. That was haunted and that.
When talking about the Ras, there was children buried in them Ras, you know, near them that were never baptised. I know of one particular place up near the Harra, and this family, they had a lot of children, but they were dead born. There was only one lived, and I always remember as a child, my father and the father of the child that died actually had this little small coffin, and they went over the lane, and it was actually buried because we used to pick blackberries there in the summertime, and I often thought of where had they buried the actual coffin, because you weren't allowed into the consecrated ground if you know.
It was terrible, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And that's where there was babies buried I don't know if they were actually in the Ra, but we always called it that and near it. But we used to pick the blackberries. I presume that Ra is still there, I don't know.
There's a Ra down in Tarmdara or Mistern, somewhere down in the fields. It could be Forlands, it could be, I don't know where. Now, Morris, my brother Morris would know where it was, because he told me the story, and I presume it is true, because when the rural electrification came to our corner of the woods, in the 1950s was it, I suppose, they put a pole in the Ra and all down along there, that line. And I presume it went along the line, that's why they put it in it. So they lit up, they had a big ceremony sometime in the hall, and they lit all up, and everything went grand. But a few days after they lit it up, the transformer or whatever they had on that pole tripped, and it blew out all Adamstown. So they went and they fixed it up and come on away and lifted, and it tripped again. So they go back and they put a new transformer, whatever they had to put on it, put a new one on it. And there was nothing wrong with the old one. So that burnt out, blew again. So after several more goes at trying and fixing it, they put another pole outside the Ra, and it's worked perfectly ever since. And the one that they put in the Ra is still there, without minus the wires and stuff. And apparently it can be seen to this day.
I never knew that now, but...
No, you didn't never know that. No. And my brother says it's there to this day, that pole. Covered in ivy.
I tell a man that ploughed around one time though, and he had a real good pair of horses, a mare heavy and foal. And the old man that he got the place from said to him, "What will you do now?" He says, "Don't touch that spot in the field." So young man said, "That's bullshit." So he went on anyway, and he said to the fellow working with him, "Plough down that bank there." He said, "The old fellow says there's something there." He said, "Well, I know." The man drove into it anyway, and the plough turned over, went through one of the horses' bellies, the mare with the foal.
Yes, of course.
She had to be put down. The next day, the man that was doing the ploughing got, oh God, what did he get a few years ago? Not meningitis. Polio.
Yes.
And he was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. The next time he went out, the place went to fire while he was trying to plough. And the next thing, the wife died. So he packed up completely, and that spot is there in that field still for anyone to see. For never to send. That is a fact now.
I heard a story about down on the Kilmore Quay Road. The road had a very bad bend in it. You had to go around this tree, and seemingly the council decided to straighten the road, and they wanted to cut the tree down, and everyone objected to it. And the council workers came out, and every chainsaw that went to the tree went flying in bits. It was supposed to break. No one could cut the tree down, so the road went around the tree. It's still there, but the tree is gone. The tree rotted eventually and fell down. Now I don't know if that's true or not.
There's a rat someplace out around Wellington Bridge, out around can't think of the place now. Grantstown, up past Grantstown, up that way, going up for the Friary, on past the Friary, and there was a fairy rat up there, and it was on the same piece of land as this farmer had, and he said there, it was about 12 or 13 or 14 years ago, he went in and he said, "Oh, that's all shrug," and he went in and he had ploughed a good lot of it. And he went home that evening and everything was grand. When he came back in the morning, it was the same. The rat was back the same as it was before he touched it.
There was this spot in the field, and no matter what you'd sow in it, and it was supposed to be a fairy rat or a fairy, belonged to fairies anyway. And you could plough away on, but there's nothing that ever grow in it. You could sow turnips in, nothing to grow. And even when the grass was in it, there'd be no grass on it. And they said that was to be left there, that was the fairy rat, and no one was to go near it. And then I was in the field. Did you ever see the fairy ring?
Yeah.
You often see them, didn't you?
Yeah.
There's one at present day at home now at my place.
Yeah.
And I was standing looking at them the other day, and they said, if you if you go into that fairy ring between 12:30 at night and 2 in the morning, that you'd keep going
Never
around
get
the
out
ring
of it,
and
yeah.
you'd never get out of it.
My own father, before he died, he wasn't well at the time, but he went off astray. He said the fairies had taken him too, but he went off astray a mile out of his way altogether, and came back in home in a pretty bad state, you know, shook him like, you know, and but I think it was the first of his trouble, like, you know. He died. He didn't live that long after it, you know. But I think he believed it. He believed that the fairies took him, you know.
Oh yeah, you couldn't cut a scarf or anything from a ring. The fairies owned it, you know. You couldn't. But I don't know, I think some people did. And they say an awful lot of bad luck followed them for doing it, you know.
At that time, a child would be in a cradle by the fire, and the fairies come in, take the child, and leave the fairy child. But that was to go years ago. Well, I don't remember, but years ago, you'd hear that was a fairy. You know,
that's right.
There was a fairy child in that house. Well, I never remembered. You know, just 100 years ago or more, that they'd come in and take their.
Often took the child. There was out of the pram.
Yeah.
And when the mother come in, the child would be missing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Listen, there you have heard that story.
They used to leave another child, didn't they?
They'd leave another child in his place. Yeah. But it'd never be as healthy.
I have a story that my father told me now. That's going back a good many years ago. And where he lived in the Coos Barn Town, there was a fairy wrath. And there was always quite a lot of rotten timber all around it, like, you know, because there was a good few trees around it. And there was 2 women, and one of them had a baby about 6 months, and she had it in the old-fashioned prams that time. And they went up in the rath to pick up rotten sticks for lighting the fire in the morning. And the other woman said to her, "We shouldn't go up here, we're not supposed to go up here." She says, "To hell with it, it'll be all right. There's lovely sticks up here." So now she had a little boy, 6 months, in the pram. And they went over she parked the pram over there, and they went over where there was a great big lot of rotten sticks, and they filled up 2 bags and brought them back. And when she went back, she got an awful fright. There was a little old withered man in the pram instead of the child. It was a real little old withered up man instead of the child. And the theory was that the fairies come and took the baby and put this other thing back there. Now, again, I'm not telling you that for truth. That was the story. That's why nobody ever went. But that wrath is there still today. I've been down around that way there last summer, and that place is still just a big fastened up field, and there's nobody ever went into it.
My grandmother told me this story one time, and she swore it was true. Now, I'm 75 and my grandmother was dead for years and years, so I'm going back a very long time. I was about 12 or 13 when she told me this story. Her mother was a midwife and used to go along, like years ago, all the babies were born in the houses. And they'd go and stay in the house a few days before the baby was born, and then they'd stay for about a week and come home and go back. But she told my grandmother as a child that if, you know, the gentry they were called, you know, the big house, the gentry, Tuppence Halfpenny, looking down on Tuppence, you know yourself. But anyhow, she said, if any of these people had a mentally deformed child, like a spinal bifida or a hydrocephalic or something like that, the lady of the house was never told, but somebody was hired to arrange to swap this baby with another baby that had been born recently of a lesser type of family. And she swore this was true, that the mentally handicapped child was put in the pram and the other child was taken and brought, and then the next day the lady of the house, oh, your baby's better now, like, you know, you can have your baby. Now, she swore this was true, that her mother told her stories like that. Could you imagine that happening? I could imagine years ago, because money buys everything, doesn't it?